Hey, this is Madalyn Sklar.
And Suze Cooper, and you're listening to All Things Audio.
You may have heard Suze while you were out. We can talk as a speaker in Spaces on desktop.
We have been waiting for this one. It's been a long time coming. I mean, we spent weeks saying, we think this is coming. Reverse engineers seem to be saying that they can see this happening. This seems to be happening on the radar. And then, of course, I go away for 2 weeks and everything happens. Not only does the actual name of the entire app change, but desktop goes live. So, Madalyn, are you on desktop now?
No. So there are definitely some issues, and we're going to talk about that. I do have in the nest, we'll have it in the show notes for our podcast listeners. You can hear the space. It was a space that Andrew Lyons over at Spaces Dashboard was hosting back on Saturday. And I just happened to see he was hosting because I'm using one of his newer features with the alerts over at Spaces Dashboard. And I've come up with this whole system where I go turn on alerts for certain profiles. So I'm alerted if they're hosting, co-hosting, or just speaking, and you have the option to have it however you want. You can totally customize it. And you get an email notification through Spaces Dashboard. Well, I get too many emails, so I have my emails turned off on my phone. But what I did, because I have an iPhone, I talked about this last week. Andrew was here, and I mentioned this to him. So because I have an iPhone, you can have, through your email in there, you can set up VIP, and you can set your phone to notify you if somebody on your VIP list emails you. And so I experimented with that. So I have it set up. So every time Andrew does these emails through Spaces Dashboard for all of my alerts, I get a little pop-up notification on my phone through my Gmail. And this has been so effective. So now I always know when there's some specific people that I want to catch as soon as they go live. So Andrew was hosting the space on Saturday. He was doing a test from his iPad. He was out of the country with his family, I'm assuming on vacation, but I'm sure he was eager to try this. So you would laugh, Suze. I'm on my phone and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm not in front of my desktop. I don't have all my gear set up. But I was worried he was going to do one of those real quickie tests because he was waiting for, like, he was just him. He was waiting for somebody to show up to test it with him. So I hurried up, jumped in on my mobile. I said, Andrew, I'm here, but I'm not on desktop yet. So give me a minute. I'll just chat with you on here while I'm setting it all up because, I have to set up all my gear. And if you go to the space here, let me put this in the nest. I have a thread of tweets I put together with this. So if you go listen to the replay, Andrew has it starting like at the 7-minute mark, and it's when I first come on. So he was waiting that long. That's why I had to hurry, because I had this feeling like if I don't jump in quickly, he's going to leave because nobody showed up for a test. But it took me several minutes. So if you fast forward to 12:27 mark, that's when you'll hear me on my desktop with my podcast gear. And it's the gear I'm using right now, my Shure SM7B microphone, my Cloud Lifter. I was using my Scarlett 2i2, but I'm not using that right now. But I just use my usual gear when I'm trying to broadcast directly through the computer. But it was buggy, Suze. It was very buggy. We had lots of issues. It was cool, but there were issues. And so the biggest problem we ran into with this is that once you start having more speakers come in, it will automatically mute you when you're in the middle of talking on desktop. And this was incredibly frustrating. And I saw some other spaces where they were testing it. This feature first became available last week, like one night last week. And I'll put this in the nest. One of them that was doing this did a screen share. And I was like, oh, this auto mute thing looks terrible. And they were talking about how frustrating it was. When it was just me and Andrew doing this test on Saturday, it was fine. And it wasn't auto muting me. But as soon as other speakers came on board, it did it to all of us. And then I kept running into this issue where all of a sudden I couldn't hear one of the speakers. And I have to leave and come back. I probably left and came back a dozen times, Suze. It was very frustrating between the auto mute and then all of a sudden I can't hear people talk. I could see that they were talking with the audio form on my screen, but I couldn't hear them. But everybody else could hear them.
Oh, that's so strange. That's so weird, isn't it?
It's frustrating. So I think it just goes back to how we have come to know Elon. He likes to just try things quickly and fix it as it breaks, right? It's like, so it seems like they've got this working somewhat, but they haven't worked out all the bugs yet. So that was the only drawback. The other thing is you cannot initiate the space as the host from desktop. You still have to, although Andrew did it on an iPad. So, I mean, I don't really do Twitter on an iPad. So, but he was able to start it there. But if I'm wanting to, like you starting this space just now, you have to, for now, until they come out with this next feature, I'm sure it'll be the next thing they do. But for now, it has to be initiated on mobile. But for our listeners that are here with us right now, you technically can go to desktop and you'll see the mic. And also, surprisingly, that you can do the emojis now on desktop. And that, Suze, was very exciting. So I like that we got the mic, we got the emojis. They still need to work on making the mic better so that we don't keep having weird issues. But what do you think of this happening so quickly?
Well, it's not been quick, has it? It seems to have been, this was the last thing that the Twitter engineers were working on before everything changed. So, you know, it was the next thing we were expecting. And actually, we've been waiting a really long time for this to happen. But as you say, now it has happened. There seems to be some kind of momentum behind it. And I'm fairly sure that you're totally right when you say, you know, Elon's thrown it out there and now he'll be, you know, okay, what's working, what's not working. How quickly they fix it is going to be another thing, isn't it? I mean, we still don't really know who's working on this over at X. We don't know whether there's a new engineering team or, you know, anyone behind Spaces still, or whether this is still just something that's on a massive to-do list that, you know, the next person who's free, someone want to sort something out on Spaces for us, you know. I mean, don't put it past them. That could be the way they're working. So yeah, I think it's great that it's actually there. It's a thing. It's probably, you know, it can't not work for too long, because that is when everyone gets frustrated. And then what was a good thing and something that they were going to fix on the hoof becomes actually a bit of a problem, and people start moaning about it. People don't use it. And then it gets kind of a little bit of negative press on it, and that doesn't help it at all. So I really hope that they do fix the bugs quite quickly, and that it becomes a sort of seamless process for people. You know, lots of people have been after this because it is way easier to connect your kind of high-end and USB mics, all of those kind of things, to the desktop system. As you say, you know, I've got a Scarlett 2i2 as well, and you know, that's kind of automatically all set up. And lots of people set up equipment like that using a sound card and a different microphone, XLR or USB or whatever. When we were using Zoom so much over the last couple of years, you know, all the different video calls that we've done, people have got this stuff. So it's all set up. It's kind of part of your computer setup now at home to use the audio in that way, rather than just using the microphone that might be on your laptop or whatever. So I think this really will open it up to people, because almost it clicks into that sensibility of, oh yeah, this is how we do a call or a live stream, or a, you know, it's kind of already there. You don't have to think about, well, this is on my phone, but if I've got this audio equipment, and you know, it just, there's kind of a disconnect between the phone and the microphone, which is why so many of us have gone for the Rodecaster or the pod track. And, you know, we've kind of found these workarounds and ways to do it, but not everyone is going to do that. And, you know, as I said in my Substack a few weeks ago, we can optimize the way that we input our audio by using this tech, but in the end we are still broadcasting over a really small quality transport stream audio file. So, you know, you can, yes, using this gear is all really great, and as an audio file I'm right in there and I'm using all of it, but I do also know that there's kind of very little difference you can make when it is such a low data rate of a file anyway. But yeah, good to see it. I love the fact the emojis are working on it. They had that working first, didn't they, as well?
Yeah, it's great that the emoji and it's working fine. I'm just glad because, I mean, to your point earlier, I mean, we have been waiting for this feature for a very long time. Before Elon took over, the Spaces team was very vocal in telling us this was the next big feature they were working on, giving us the ability to speak on desktop. Then Elon came along, bought the company, and then all of that got put on hold. I just have almost given up. That's why I just feel like this was so surprising last week, because I just kind of gotten to the point where it's like, we're never going to get this. Like, if we don't have it by now, we're probably never going to. It was just hard to get excited about, like, will it happen? I'm just so thrilled it finally has, because I think so many of us, whether you're a podcaster or into audio like some of us, or you're not, you most likely have a decent microphone. You probably have a lavalier, a USB, a something that you normally use on your computer that you're not able to hook up to your phone. And this would give you that ability to have better quality of audio. And we know audio quality is important. You know, many times people will, if the quality doesn't sound good, they'll just leave. They don't want to listen. Who wants to listen to bad audio? So I think this is a really great move on X's part. A really interesting tweet from Nima, who's always reverse engineering stuff. He posted that X is adding the ability to manage a space on the web app, and showing in this screenshot here, being able to remove and block and remove co-hosts, speakers, and listeners. So that's interesting, how it's showing how it's going to look on desktop. So at least we know they're still working on this.
Yeah, and that also suggests that, you know, you've just said that a host can't kind of start up a space from desktop. I think they wouldn't be working on that unless that's the next thing to happen, right? You know, if you're managing who's speaking and who's being your co-host and whatever, then surely you should be able to start your space as the host from the desktop. So I think that must all be part of that same design phase or whatever it is that they're doing there. So yeah, good to see that from Nima, that it's being worked on as well.
Yeah, and another thing that has been pretty exciting that's happened very recently here, Twitter has had the ability for us all these years to do live stream. And you and I have talked about this before, that you could actually do a live audio stream through that. What's interesting to me is that you don't see anybody doing this. You don't see anybody doing live streaming from mobile. It's a mobile only thing. They're not live streaming on mobile in the Twitter, now X app. And they're certainly not doing the live audio. Of course, if you're doing audio, you're typically here in Spaces. But we've actually had these other features for years. Now, the live streaming used to be really popular because of Periscope, but then when Periscope went away a few years ago, it was interesting to find that technically you could still live stream in the mobile app, but the quality was terrible. It's terrible video quality. What Twitter X just recently did is absolutely upgraded that video. So the video is way clearer, way better, not all pixelated. And so I've been experimenting with this quite a bit and doing these little Madalyn lives from my phone using my podcast gear, since I now have that ability with, you know, since you and I have learned over time, like, well, how could we, you know, record and use good audio gear through our phones? So I hooked up my gear, did this live stream, and did it as like just this quick little 3-minute editorial of being able to speak in Spaces. After I had done that on Saturday, I thought, let me utilize this other great feature, doing a live stream through mobile, and I'll talk about my experience being on Andrew's space using my desktop and my gear. So I did a quick little video with that. And then I thought, well, not everybody really knows how to do the live streaming audio and or video. So I made a quick little how-to video so you can actually see me doing one. I did a screen share on my phone as I did a live stream. And I figured it might be helpful for some of our listeners. And I even shared the gear that I use, especially for our more audio geeks like us that are curious, like, what kind of gear am I using to do all of this? So I thought this might be helpful. I wanted to share that with everybody. So what do you think about, you know, the whole live streaming and doing live audio like that? Do you think people are going to start utilizing these features?
I don't know. The whole outlook of this app is He's never been quiet about it. He wants it to do all the things. He wants it to do everything. And so there isn't this focus on audio quite in the same way as there was when Twitter was working on it, because it was something a little bit different. And you felt like it was, it's a sidestep from video. Whereas we're expecting Elon to allow us to be able to do just about everything in this app because he wants us to spend all of our time here. I wouldn't put it past them that they're sort of looking into multiple people speaking on live streams and going kind of the way of, like YouTube live streaming and all that kind of thing, stuff like StreamYard, all of those sort of platforms. Potentially, he's trying to do something like that in here. Now, what the impact has on the audio side of the app, I don't really know. Do people start, do we start doing all things audio as a video live stream on Twitter, and then it's not audio only? And you think, well, probably not, because the beauty of what we do and what we like doing and what we talk about is all focused on the audio. But other people may well go for the live stream and the video over the audio. Are they throwing everything out there to see what people will use and what they don't? And will they kill the stuff that doesn't get the attention? That's the other thing. Like, if you put everything out there and then look at the data and see what it's saying and then just kill what's not actually being used, that's another way they might be going. But yeah, I mean, the audio only live stream rears its head every so often, and I know that I've said this before on All Things Audio, but I remember where I was the day that audio only live streaming went live, and it was September 2018, and I was actually at work, and that's why I remember, because I shouldn't really have been fiddling about with it, because I should have been at work. But that they allowed you to go live but turn your camera off, so it was effectively an audio only stream. So you could either do that live and have it kind of in the moment and live. People could raise their hand and talk to you. So I spoke to someone who I'd been, following and commenting, engaging with on Twitter for a good year or so, who was over in Canada, who I'd never met. And he was the first person I spoke to via audio on a social media platform. And it was incredible. And to me, it was the springboard once they brought Spaces in for what they wanted to do. I think they could already see what they wanted to do with social audio. And I think that was a way of testing it out and seeing how people would use it and what they would do. I think you could also do emojis, which used to come up kind of from the bottom of the screen. You could invite people, but all of it was public. All of it was on your timeline. And then the opposite side to that is obviously the voice tweets, which we've spoken about a lot on here, which is a different version, because you pre-record that and you can pause it and you can stop and you can start again and things like that. So it's not live and in the moment like this audio only live stream version. But yeah, really interesting to see that the minute anything happens with the video, suddenly people are like, oh, look, you can do audio only with it. And it's like, well, yeah, you always could.
It's been there. It's been there a long time. I know. It was just so interesting. Like, people were discovering this for the first time last week. I'm like, no, it's been there all this time. It's just hidden. You just don't realize. And then I see Paul Armstrong's here, and you and Morgan were in a conversation with him with this, talking about the ability to do the audio and the video.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is it useful? I mean, now we have Spaces. Is it useful to be able to do that, to be able to turn your camera off and go live? Because it's effectively this, really, except without the card and without appearing in the Spaces tab. And, so it's kind of odd. It's another thing.
And it's one way.
It is one way.
You can't bring guests. You can't have a conversation. It's a one-way thing. So do keep that in mind, everybody. If you're using the live, it's very simple to do. Like I said before, I have that how-to videos in the Nest. It's also in my feed. If you can't find it, send me a DM. I'll send it to you. But it's very simple to do on the Twitter X mobile app. Every time I say Twitter now, I'm compelled to say X as well. So I know some people are getting mad if you say Twitter now. Like, I've been in some spaces where it's like, no dead naming. Don't say Twitter. Like, seriously, like, you have to only say X. But it's hidden is the problem. So when you go to compose a tweet, you go open your camera. And when you open your camera, You have the ability to take a photo, to do a video, to do a GIF. Well, you have to swipe across. On an iPhone, I'm not sure on Android, but on iPhone, you have to swipe all the way across and then you'll see live. So it's hidden. But when you go live, then you have that option of live streaming through your phone, but then you can tap to turn the camera off, and now it's just audio. So it's there. We've all had it. So definitely encourage everybody to play around with it. You might find it to be interesting, but you can't bring guests. You can't have a full conversation. It's just you talking. And if you like that, you might find it useful.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, actually. So when they first launched it, you could speak to other people. And I think there was you could speak to a maximum of 2 people, something like that. But as soon as Spaces came on board, they cut that. So yeah, that's the difference in it, is that it's a one-way only audio channel. Yeah.
I have to share this tweet because I think this is so cool. So the new CEO of X, Linda Yaccarino, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. She posted this tweet to let everybody know that this week she's going live on Spaces and then on CNBC to talk about X. And I was so blown away when I saw this a few days ago, because she says, we're first going to go live on Spaces at 9:55 a.m. Eastern and then jump onto the live broadcast on CNBC around 10:15 a.m. Eastern. And I thought, this is a smart way for companies, big and small, however, to do something like this where they could initiate a conversation first in Spaces before they're on some big media broadcast or even some kind of live stream. And I think this is interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised like this. I mean, what did you think when you saw this? Oh, let's go hang out in Spaces for a little bit, and then we're going to move over to this big broadcast I'm doing on TV.
Yeah, I think we will see, I hope we will see publishers come back. I mean, it's not like they weren't doing it before, but certainly there was some major drop off from some major publishers and some major companies in terms of using Spaces. And it's a shame, because I think they were only just starting to realise how they could use it and gain traction with it, really. I mean, I've been at a conference where we've gone live on Spaces from the conference, and we've had people we've had people in the room that are in the space, obviously me, because I'm a complete geek, but also people that aren't in the room and can then ask a question of the people on the stage at the conference. I mean, it worked really, really well. And you've also had, really big podcasts having sidecar spaces, which we spoke about quite a lot when this first came along as a feature. And so the idea of being able to, go live over here before you then go to talk about this very platform over on CNBC, that's a really, it's a smart move. And I hope what she's trying to do is kind of be the role model, if you like, and go, look, this is the thing you can do, which people had started to do. But unfortunately, I think, there's been a lot of drop off in Spaces because people have felt uneasy about what's going on, whether or not this was going to stay as a feature, the stability of it. If you start, if companies start to actually create content or say they're going to show up over here, there's just been so much going on that I think a lot of people stepped away and kind of went, let's just wait for this all to calm down and see what happens. So maybe this is the beginning of them trying to say, look, this is a thing. Here's something you could do. Yeah, I really hope we do see more people coming back.
It's a cool use of Spaces, I think. And I'm more inclined to check it out because of the fact that this is like a pre-show before she goes on live TV. It makes me like, oh, I wonder what she's going to talk about. Maybe she's going to share some interesting news about X, that we're going to hear first in Spaces before she goes on TV.
Yeah, and it's that cross-promotion thing as well, isn't it? Like, people who didn't know she was going to be on CNBC probably would have joined the space and then watched the broadcast and might not have previously. And those on CNBC that heard about Spaces may well then think, oh, right, let's hop over there and see what that's all about. And then they're on the platform, which is, obviously their key aim in doing the PR in the first place. But yeah, it's an interesting way of spreading that content, really making the most of it. And, it really fosters a sense of engagement with the audience, right? Because if she goes live on CNBC, fine, she's on your screen in the corner of your room. But if she goes live on here first and you talk to her and you hear her saying what she's about to say, there is a much deeper connection, as we've said, all the way along within these spaces and through social audio, than there is with her just being on the screen in the corner of your room on a broadcasting channel.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. I came across a really cool tweet today. So you've probably heard that creators are now getting paid on Twitter, but X. But of course, you got to be having lots of views, lots of engagement for this to happen. Usually the viral posts and things like that, most of us will never see $1 from X. But the thing is, I've been seeing people reporting in the past week, oh, we got this amount, or we got an email saying we're getting this from this creator payout. So I've been following these two brothers, the Krestensteins, Brian and Ed Krestenstein. And so they've been talking about how they've each gotten checks from the creator payout. It seems to be like those on the political spectrum of discussion, because it can just be very popular on this platform. Like things that just get people really talking, good or bad, seem to do really well. And it seems like those creators are the one that are, getting the money here. But what they tweeted today is they said they've decided to reinvest some of the earnings they're getting from this creator fund to help build their podcast. And I thought, wow, that is super interesting. So they have decided to become a verified organization, which is not cheap. I think it's like $1,000 a month to do that through X. And they're just using some of this money to invest towards this podcast. So I don't know. I thought this was really interesting. They say more plans and details are coming soon, but they also say, and I'm sure this is why they became a verified organization, they say, we believe that Twitter video will open up opportunities for those on the right and the left to better communicate and create a dialogue that hopefully will be a net positive for society. Because we keep hearing about podcasters moving over to X, doing live streaming video. It's just interesting how we're starting to see a lot of this stuff take shape that Elon says he wants us to be the everything app. It's like there's something for everyone here.
I've seen a few people who've been talking about what they're going to do with the payouts. And, investing into podcasting is certainly not a silly idea at the moment. It is still very much a vibrant and growing industry with podcasting. So, yeah, I think, definitely a good idea for them to have put some money behind that, and be interesting to see where that heads.
We've had a lot of Twitter X news today. We've got a few other quick things to bring to your attention, and then we'll bring up some speakers because we want to hear from you all. Matt Navarra did a really interesting post talking about TikTok, especially for you podcasters out there. It says TikTok is inviting creators to link their videos to full-length podcast episodes via RSS feeds. I thought this is very interesting. It's not clear. Are they just inviting certain creators to test this out? I can't really tell from this, who all is being invited. But Suze, if you're using TikTok and you're a podcaster, this would be phenomenal to have.
Yeah. And, TikTok is a good place for podcast marketing. Short form video really works to push snippets of your podcast. It's why all of these different remote platforms have got video included in them, and will usually spit out some really short little video clips even for you at the end of your recording, because it's then easy to put it up on TikTok. It's easy to put it up as a reel on Instagram, and these things really do get some attention. There are a lot of podcasters out there who are using TikTok really, really effectively to grow their audience and to kind of expand their reach with their content. So this is really interesting. And yeah, you're right. It doesn't say whether or not this is invite only, particularly at the moment. I would imagine it's something that's in beta, because that's how all these apps seem to work, and it will be kind of a small group that will be able to do it for now, and then they'll see whether or not it works or iron out some bugs, and then perhaps roll it out. But it looks like effectively you can link link your podcast to your video. So someone can have a little look at one of your short form TikToks and then hit the link and be transported to your full length podcast episode relating to that video, or maybe not. And you can basically select which episode that is. You can select which videos you can link to your podcast. So yeah, it seems like a no-brainer really for anyone that is in podcasting, and certainly for anyone in podcasting that's already using TikTok. So yeah, it'd be good to see how people are using it.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about. I think it's an excellent idea. And speaking of podcasters, another little tidbit of news. Some of these news pieces just came out today. Like, something about Wednesdays, Suze. There's always news on Wednesdays. That if
it's the midweek rush.
Yes, exactly. So if any of you use Patreon, there's something brand new for podcasters. And I'm sure some of you know that podcasters love using Patreon to build and monetize their communities. And little known fact, I've actually been on Patreon since 2015, back in the early days of it. I used it for my podcast years ago, and then I kind of stopped promoting it and actively using it, but it was still there, kind of dormant, but I still had supporters. I've had people still do it monthly all these years because they just want to support me, which is amazing. Well, I decided to relaunch it, which I just did last week. And if you want to check it out, just go Madalyn, just look up Madalyn Sklar or just go to patreon.com/Madalyn Sklar. It's easy to find. Anyway, this piece of news caught my eye because I know we get plenty of podcasters that listen to our space and our podcast here, All Things Audio. And this is really cool news to hear, because if you use Patreon and you're a podcaster, one of the issues we have is, while they'll let you have a private RSS feed to give to your subscribers, people could share that and it could, get out to more people. It's still a great feature, and I'm glad they offer that. But your choice is either have this private RSS feed so people can listen into their favorite app, but it's possibly able to get shared around, or you can just publish it directly into Patreon, but it's not like the best place for that. Like, I'd rather listen into my podcast player of choice. So they've teamed up with Spotify. So I think this is super cool that you'll now be able to put your premium content in front of Spotify users. And it's like this new integration that's now starting. And if you are podcasting, what a cool way to be able to get all of your content out onto the Spotify platform. And it's going to appear on some new page. They say that it will show your episodes of Patreon exclusive and give people that opportunity to go subscribe and be one of your patrons. So I thought this was really neat. And I love seeing news like this that comes out that help fellow podcast creators. So Suze, I think it's great seeing these types of news coming out to help.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really clever partnership, really. Both platforms are good at what they do, and bringing it together, as you say, kind of really only provides a better platform for podcasters who are trying to monetize their episodes. And I think there's definitely something like over on Apple, you'll see subscriber feeds and you'll be able to see kind of grayed out titles and locked episodes. And that is kind of the best way when you're listening through to a feed and you suddenly can't listen to the next one without signing up or without subscribing or whatever. It really does make you think, I might just sign up to that. So having those exclusive episodes actually on a platform with a much wider reach and much bigger audience who'll be able to scroll through and see, and they're there listening to podcasts already and see this content, I think is really useful and can only really be a benefit to podcasters.
Absolutely, 100%. I would love for any of our live listeners here that are on, well, first of all, if you want to come chat with us, request a mic. But if you have the ability to come speak with us on desktop, Suze, wouldn't you love to hear like how maybe since it's been a few days since this has been launched, maybe it'll work a little better now and maybe not auto mute so much? Would you like to see it in action?
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael Sterling was saying he was interested in trying out the Rodecaster via the desktop. So I think, Michael, now's your moment. If you're around and you want to request the mic, we love a live tryout. I mean, that's how we started, right, Madalyn? All of this was a live experiment.
I saw that Michael was trying to come up and speak, but then it kept connecting. Nothing happened. He went back to listener, so I don't know. And I see Anna's trying to come up. Something is up because it keeps trying to connect them, but then it's not doing it.
Ooh, so is that with everyone or just with Michael? Because maybe he was trying the...
Anna's trying to connect. Well, Michael went back down to listener. Like it just was hanging for the longest time saying connecting and it didn't connect. So here comes Tristan. Let's see if any of them, but Anna is still trying to connect. Now here's the other thing when I was testing desktop with Andrew the other day. So when, you know how you're listening and you tap the mic and you come up on your speaker and it takes a few seconds. And then one thing I've always noticed, and it's always been like this, is it's a little bit louder once you're like the audio you hear gets a little bit louder. My understanding is they're like on two different servers, like the speakers are kind of on a separate deal than the listeners. And so there's that little bit of a delay, but then it's fine. But there was a much bigger, like it took longer to connect and it was definitely a bigger delay. And I definitely noticed the delay more as there were more speakers and we were on desktop. So I don't know, but I see Tristan's here. Tristan, are you on desktop or mobile right now?
I'm on mobile. I was principally just coming up to prove if it was working.
Yeah, I'm wondering. So we know Michael's trying to come up on desktop. Anna, you were trying, it didn't let you in. Were you trying to do desktop just now? Do a thumbs up emoji if you were doing desktop. And if you were trying to just do mobile, do a thumbs down. So wait, we're going to use the emojis to let us know which way she was doing it. And of course, there's a little bit of delay between us and the listeners, but I'm curious, how was she trying to get in? So I'm just wondering if there's just some issue right now with those on desktop. And I see that Andy's trying to come in. So, interesting.
Yeah, I sent over a speaker. I sent over an invite to Anna as well to see if that would help clear it. There's definitely something.
Andy's here. Andy, are you on desktop or mobile?
I am on desktop.
You made it on desktop. Yeah, you sound great.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, it sounds good.
All right. I'm using the Rode, that new PodMic USB.
Nice. Okay, cool. You sound great. And is it trying to auto mute you? Because you sound fine. And we have Tristan I've noticed that when it was multiple speakers, it would keep trying to auto mute you as you talk.
No, I'm not seeing any difficulty there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it seems to be working okay. I mean, it's passable.
Have you used this before on desktop or is this your first time?
No, this is the first time.
Okay, cool. It sounds great. You're not being I'm not sure how many speakers before that auto muting. When it was just Andrew and I didn't have that issue. But once other people came on to speak, it would keep auto muting me. And it was very frustrating because it would like turn it off every few seconds. So can you imagine you're trying to, so Suze, that's why I didn't want to come on here as the co-host on desktop, because I'm not sure if it's reliable yet for that. Andrew would probably know the most, being that he's the person behind Space's dashboard. Andrew, if you're able to chat with us, we'd love for you to come up. But at least they have it turned on, but it still would be nice if it worked fully, before they turn something on, like not have so many issues.
For the desktop, I'd really like the space to move a bit, maybe just a little bit more like the way that LinkedIn has them as tabs or something. Just you can't see everyone in the space. It gets a bit frustrating unless you've got a very big screen. It keeps it a little bubble over on the corner. It'd be nice to be able to expand that out as well if they're going to do some more desktop work.
And Andrew's coming up. It'll be interesting to see what is new with this since Andrew and I did our space on Saturday. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Madalyn. Hey, Suze.
Is there anything new to report since Saturday when we did our test?
I haven't done another test, but I'm actually logging in now I'm speaking on my laptop here to you now.
It sounds good. Yeah, that's great. And Michael keeps trying to come up. It's not letting him up. And he said he was going to try coming up on his Rodecaster.
Yeah, my entry was really seamless there. I came off the phone, went on desktop, and now I'm
What are your thoughts on this? I mean, when I did this with you on Saturday, my biggest frustration was that auto mute. Once we had multiple speakers, when it was just you and I, it was fine. But then also with multiple speakers, I kept not hearing people. And I could see they were talking on the screen, but I couldn't hear them. And I had to leave and come back at least a dozen times. And that was so incredibly frustrating. What's your thought on all of this so far? I think they're doing to him what it did to me before. I'm wondering if he can't hear us.
It's like it's giving people do you think this is the auto-mute thing, Madalyn, or is this just literally giving people seconds to speak?
I don't know. I don't think so, because it would show that I was muted. Like it on desktop, it kept doing the mute button, like the red mute button. But
I mean, I've got to say, this is more than buggy. This is like not working, Elon. Right? So why are we here? It's broke.
And Andrew just DM'd and he said, I can't hear now. So this is okay. So when Andrew and I did this test, I'll go grab those tweets. They're in the nest, but they're further back. I'll go put them up, especially for those that arrived more recently into this space. So Andrew was doing a test space on Saturday. I saw he was broadcasting. I jumped in because he wanted to test desktop speaking. And I came in on I came in on mobile, because I wanted to grab him and say, hey, I'm here, don't leave, because he was just waiting for somebody to show up. I said, don't leave, let me hook up all my gear on desktop because I want to test this and see what it's like. So it took me a few minutes, and we have that replay available. I'll go get it's like a thread I have that have all the tweets you can check out. And so, we tried it. It was pretty cool, but it just kept doing this bizarre auto mute thing that was so incredibly frustrating that I don't see how this could be really usable at the moment. I figured since that was days ago, maybe it's fixed now, and maybe this is a much better experience for people on desktop. But I had to just keep leaving and coming back, and that's no good. And I only kept doing it and stayed because it was Andrew. If it had just been some random space, I would have just left and not come back, because it was that frustrating.
And I think this is the problem in that, if people hear it's on desktop and they come and they try it, maybe they've not tried Spaces before, or they've been waiting for it to be available on desktop before they do dive in. And then it becomes frustrating, difficult to use, and it doesn't do the one thing that you need it to do, which is that you can be heard and, you can speak. If you can't do those things, then it doesn't work. Like fundamentally, it needs to be fixed before it can be shipped. So, otherwise, it just creates bad press for the whole thing. And that's what really annoys me about it, because it's hard enough trying to explain to people how great this thing is. When it works, it is great. And we've been through, there are lots of different ways people can use it. It really does build connections. We've built community around it. But it is just frustrating that, things get pushed out and they're broke. Michael, can you hear us? Can you speak to us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now that is perseverance. Thank you.
There we go. I'm on my phone. I am in my Rodecaster. I'm just not on desktop because it just would not work. And I'm wondering, should we also be asking what operating system are people using and what browser? Because I'm trying on a Mac, and I tried on both Safari and Chrome. And each time I could request the microphone, but then I never saw anything other than that. It didn't show me a rejection. It didn't say things were pending. It just sat there, nothing. So I think maybe it's a Mac thing.
That's interesting.
But I don't know if other people are using Windows, if it's more successful for people on Windows, because that's like the person at X who tested this and did it on Windows and didn't test it on a Mac. I don't know. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Back to you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Elon's having a hissy fit with Apple this week. Who knows? It could be anything. Yeah, interesting, because Anna had also put in the comments that she was on a Mac. So potentially that could be a problem.
I was on Windows, but after I'd replied to you, then I couldn't hear anything. And so I logged back out. I'm back on mobile now.
We do not want to go back to hokey cokey spaces, right, Madalyn? We've done that. We did that years ago. We don't want that back. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're working on it, but I wish they could work on it so it works.
Exactly. Because of my experience on Saturday, it makes me not want to go do it again, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get auto muted over and over and over when I talk. Like it is like literally every 2 seconds, like you're talking and it's mute.
Yeah, and that's you, Madalyn. You who does like 5 spaces a week. You're saying, I don't want to go back in there because I'm worried it's not going to work. So someone who's new to kind of coming back to that, or new to spaces completely, what are they going to think? They're going to jump out and never come back ever again.
Right. So I would rather they have like worked out the bugs first and launched it rather than let's launch what we have, throw it against the wall, see what sticks, which has been, as we know, how Elon likes to do things. But I don't know. I don't think it was a good idea to just be so quick to do this when it was this buggy. It's okay if it's a little buggy, but this buggy is no good.
That strategy works if you're gathering feedback from people using it, and if those people know where to file that feedback for you, how to, give back their experiences, gather up that data and then put it back in. That iterative working that we saw when Twitter built Spaces worked because they listened to the people using it and they acted on it really quickly. So it doesn't work if you just roll something out and go, here you go, here's a new toy, and then nobody knows how to like, who do we get in touch with, and are we going to get any response anyway, and like, is there any point in trying to get hold of anyone to tell them, and do they care, and are they really working on it in the background, or was this just like a little nod to it because it's still here and because actually they're really working on video, but while they're there, someone can do this. It's a very different situation to them building iteratively at Twitter, where we really felt like part of the build and part of the plan.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully it'll work better by next week, because I would love to be able to co-host this with you through desktop. That would be so much easier for me to do.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very, very different. I don't know, would I change what I do? Maybe.
Yeah, I would be using my Scarlett. The thing is, so my desk, I have a standing desk. Because of the desk I have, it's not that big, because standing desks are not cheap, but I got a really decent one and the price was good because it's not humongous. So I'm limited with my space. So for me to have all my gear for when I'm on desktop versus my gear when I'm doing this on Spaces is different gear, like completely different gear. So I'm always having, based on how I'm going to be, if I'm going to just be doing this in Spaces and I have this one set of gear, but I have to like move everything around. I have to keep stuff off to the side. It's a real pain. So what I would like is to be able to have just the gear I need for when I'm doing live video, live audio, anything audio visual on desktop. Because then everything can stay.
Yeah, frictionless setup. That's what you need. You just need it all there. So all you do is turn on the mic.
Frictionless. That's what I need.
Anything that's going to take you 20 minutes to set up and 20 minutes to take down is just 40 minutes of pain, really, isn't it? For the hour then that you're going to be on there, it's sort of the balance of it isn't there. So it's about trying to set it up, as you say, so that you can just come to it, do the thing and come away. But I do think if they can get this working, it will make a difference to people, and people will just come to it because they've got all of this stuff set up on their desk already, as I said before, because they've been doing live streams, they've been doing webinars, they've been doing Zoom calls and Google Meet and Teams, goodness, and so it is all there and at their fingertips. So if they could just figure it out so that it works and doesn't cause a problem, then I think more people will use it.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, I'm glad we got to test it with some of our listeners because it's still cool.
Yeah, we did. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for requesting the mic and for bearing with us. But this is generally what we do here anyway. So I'm sure we've tested lots of things over the years. So this is just the latest in a run of tests. But I'm sure we'll be doing it again in future weeks as well, Madalyn.
I'll feel more confident when we know we can broadcast on desktop without worrying about losing the audio and having to keep leaving and coming back, and not worrying about auto mute. So when those two things are fixed,
then we'll try again.
then we're going to definitely be broadcasting on desktop in here. And it'll be interesting because we're both using our good podcast. This is what's going to be interesting, Sue, because you were making that point earlier. We're still broadcasting through Twitter X on our phones, even though we have our good audio gear. I wonder how much of a difference will we notice doing it through a phone versus doing it through desktop? Because we'll be using the same microphones. some of the hardware will be a little different. Like we said, we'll be using our Scarletts instead of you're using you'll still use a Rodecaster, but you're doing Rodecaster right now. You're not using the Scarlett, right? Not right now.
No, I'm not using the Scarlett at the moment. No, the Rodecaster's all set up. It was sort of the simple frictionless setup for when I was doing voiceover was a Scarlett 2i2, an XLR mic, and then into Audition. And then when I started doing this, I wanted to be able to feed into the mobile. So that's when I upgraded to the Rodecaster, which I'd always had my eye on, but didn't have a reason for upgrading. And then all of a sudden I did. So I saved up. Michael, I'd love to hear what you have to say about the quality. I'm assuming it's going to be about the quality difference.
Right. Yeah. So, all things considered, if you're plugging the same audio equipment into Spaces on a phone versus Spaces on desktop, it really should not sound any different. There may be a slight difference in audio level, depending on how the different systems route the audio through. But like right now, I'm on my Rodecaster using my professional mic. I'm talking to you through what's called the TRRS connection on the Rodecaster. If I were able to speak to you on desktop through the Rodecaster using like USB, it should sound basically the same. Maybe slight audio level difference. I wonder if X would do any sort of audio routing processing difference between the two, but I doubt it. So yeah. Now, as I wanted to bring this up since I'm kind of the audio geek and we're talking about this, if anybody who has a USB microphone or an interface like a Scarlett or a Rodecaster, like a Blue Yeti microphone that's USB, all of those should be able to work now with Twitter or X Spaces on desktop, just like you could use them for Zoom and all these other things. So it's an exciting time because it means that we can all create better quality audio for Twitter Spaces or X Spaces and each other's ears. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I wonder if maybe the only difference might be like dropout in terms of the broadband connection. So like my Wi-Fi connection on my laptop is probably better than the Wi-Fi connection that I've got currently at the moment, especially where I am in my sort of new office space. My Wi-Fi is connected better for some reason to my laptop than to my phone, even though they're all on the same mesh. Don't ask, it's driving me mad. But maybe, so actually the quality might be dropouts rather than, we might not get glitching dropouts from Wi-Fi and broadband issues. But I think in terms of the actual sound quality of the audio, Michael's spot on. Yeah.
That's such a great point, Suze, because when I'm on mobile, I'm definitely on Wi-Fi. I have very good Wi-Fi and I'm right next to the router, but on desktop, I am plugged directly into the modem. So I'm always going to have the best through desktop. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Thank you to all of our speakers who came on and shared so much great stuff. And we're available in all of your favorite podcast apps. We're out there, All Things Audio. You can also go to allthingsaudiopodcast.com as well.
You certainly can. And you can catch us here on Twitter and use the hashtag AllThingsAudio, and we'll pick that up throughout the week. So that's it for this week. But thank you so much to everyone that's been here in the space with us and those of you listening. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Bye, everybody.